Good stewards know trust. Trust is not a feeling, it's a way of life. For the past several months, I've been on a theme talking about feelings. And as I just headlined this homily, trust is not a feeling, it's a way of life. Artist Whitman was a writer. Several decades ago, he found himself on an airplane with Dr. Martin Luther King. King was seated beside him. On the other side of Dr. King was a middle-aged, white Southern man. Artist and Martin talked about many things, but mostly about race relations. And they could tell that the man on the other side of Dr. King was interested in their conversation about race relations, and eventually he spoke up and he said, "You know, my children accept these things readily, and I have learned to accept them. But my dad, he will never accept them." Dr. King showed great compassion. He looked the white Southern gentleman in the eye and said, "Your dad believes what he is doing is the right thing." Martin Luther King trusted. He trusted that there is an essential goodness in each of us. An essential goodness. That we believe we're doing the right thing, even when sometimes we are not. Unless we have some kind of mental problem, virtually everyone does what he or she believes is best, however sometimes misguided. He trusted. Why do I tell that story? Because I believe that one of the more essential messages coming out of today's gospel passage is about trust. Mary, fully human, the holiest person other than her son to ever live, but she was fully human. And trust me, she doubted. She couldn't be human and not doubt. Is this for real? I'm a virgin. I'm going to remain a virgin all of my life. I'm never going to have sex, but yet I'm going to have a baby. And not only am I going to have a baby, the baby is going to be conceived in me by one of the three persons of God. That's a lot to take in. Yes, Mary had doubts, but she trusted that if she did the will of God, despite those doubts, everything would turn out okay. That's trust. She didn't feel it. She did it. You don't think Joseph doubted? What do you think was going through his mind? Maybe that dream was just a dream. Maybe it wasn't real. Maybe he doubted. Yes, he doubted. How could he not? He was human. It had to be going through his mind. You know, as good a person as Mary is, and God knows she's really good, maybe she's hoodwinking me. That had to go through his mind. It would go through anyone's mind. But yet, he did what God asked. And that is the definition of trust. Trusting that if we do what God asks us to do, and we all know what God asks us to do, if we do what God asks to do, eventually it all turns out okay. That adverb, that's the key word, eventually. We get frustrated because we pray our little hearts out for things that we think we need. And when we don't get them, we say, how can I trust in God? He doesn't understand. He's not giving me what I need. Well, sure, He's giving us what we need. We just don't understand why it's what we need. Everything God gives us is something that we need. However terrible it might seem in the moment, it's always opportunity for us to learn how to love more fully. Martin Luther, not Martin Luther King, Martin Luther, the man who back in the early 16th century started the Protestant Reformation. Martin Luther had a habit. He would get up every morning and he would pray. He prayed while he was walking. That's a habit I have as well. I walk when I pray. He got up one morning and he had kind of a mini epiphany. He heard the birds. It was a beautiful day, and he looked at the birds and he said, "Oh, you glorious creatures. You get up every morning and you sing your little hearts out, giving thanks to God for another beautiful day. And I get up every morning and complain. I just don't trust enough in God." Well, I don't know who I am to be taking issue with Martin Luther, but I do. There is absolutely no problem with doubt coexisting with trust. Both are part of our human nature. It's our human nature to doubt. God gave us good minds. But if we do our best to do what God asked us to do, to be good, kind, caring human beings, even though we doubt, we're doing God's will. And strangely enough, if we doubt a lot and we still do God's will, we gain extra graces because we're overcoming the temptation of that doubt. Back to Artist Whitmore. When he was 8, his mom took him to a circus. He was enraptured by the trapeze artist, way up toward the top of the tent, flying through the air, gracefully flying through the air, and time and again, one or the other of them would leave his trapeze only to be grabbed by the other. And the little artist, remember he was 8 at that time, said, "Mom, aren't they scared? Aren't they scared they're going to fall and die? There's no net there." Well, a man sitting nearby said, "No, son, they trust each other." And artist's mom said, "And you can believe him, son, because he used to do what they do." I took issue with Martin Luther. I take issue with that old trapeze artist. Yeah, they trust now, but trust me again, they didn't trust when they first started out. They had a net when they were practicing, and they did it over and over, hundreds, thousands of times before that feeling of trust entered into them. Same with us. Same with our lives. We show our trust not by how we feel. We show our trust by what we do, by doing God's will, despite our feelings of disconnection so frequently with God. But if we do it over and over and over, day after day, month after month, year after year, for the third time, trust me, the feeling of trust comes. At 73, I have frequently feelings of trust in God. Didn't have them so much when I was 43, had them far fewer times when I was 23, didn't even think about it when I was 13. But I have stuck with it, as so many of you good people have as well. So part of what I want to get across this evening is, don't beat yourself up when you say, no, I don't trust as much as I should in God. Examine your lives. Are you doing God's will the majority of the time? If you are, you're showing your trust in God. My sisters and brothers, we are all called to be good stewards. And good stewards know trust is not a feeling. Trust is a way of life.